I think often we get into situations where you're not going to have an ideal run-in. Learning how to find the right setup and placement of your tires is key for certain situations. So as you can see here, we have a nice big wall. Now, I'm probably not going to come up, let's say in some situations you don't have a clean run-in and you'd almost have to turn into that obstacle. Well, I'm looking for a good setup on entry, and that's a key piece to what we're doing. So again, I'm always looking for the highest likelihood of success. So we have a wall here. I'm not going to want to come in crooked and turn into the face. I want to get set up and have the straightest possible run-in. That's what we're looking for. So as I come into this, the first thing I'm going to do is kick my rear over. You guys have probably seen me do that quite a few times. It's a great way to get your tire set up in the correct position. So as I make this move here, the first key piece is that tire movement. There's a couple things we can do, and we'll work that in a drill if you guys want a little later. But essentially what we're doing is we're almost high-siding the bike and using the front brake and the pull of my inside leg to move the rear tire in the correct direction. So I'm going to set up here like that. Now I have the bike straight and I'm giving myself the nice straight perfect run-in into the obstacle that I need for the highest likelihood of success. Does that make sense to everybody? That kick over is a really dialed tool to hone in for your proper tire placement, putting yourself in that good position. And really what you're doing is you're just kind of using the momentum of the bike to pull you around. I literally lean over like I'm trying to high side the bike, then pull in the front brake and pull it towards me. Now, we have that set up. From here, I'm doing a heavy load of power before the obstacle, making sure I'm getting the RPM up, and then I'm trying to transition to minimum on top because it's loose, it's slick. Yeah, it's kind of challenging. This is a quick double blip. It's going to be a lot of, like I said, a big load of power before the obstacle. And then I go there. You guys hear that? Steady feed of throttle and clutch right on the edge of the obstacle. If I pull the clutch in, I'm going to roll right back down backwards. So this is why what you guys just practiced is so important. You've got to be comfortable holding that bike in one position. Low RPM. I set myself up to drop back in. Even here I can use that kick because I've got kind of a hole here. So I can use that kick over to get that rear tire around to give me a better run back in. Now, same thing, I'll do it one more time for you. So in a sequence, nice smooth roll in. I turn the bike in the direction I want the rear tire to move around. I lean the bike away, step out, and then pull the rear tire simultaneous with the front brake. Pull the inside peg towards my outside foot. Slow, I step out, pull. I'm in a good position, forward, big load of power before the obstacle, 2 blips up and over. Low RPM to hold me in position. Back over, same thing with the rear. Step it up to put me in the right position. Roll in. Now, another thing I think that a lot of guys see, or I see a lot in technical riding, is, so I kind of went to the left there. You've got kind of a rock like this before a ledge. And this is one of those things I think a lot of guys get in their head about. They get a little bit nervous. They almost try to go for this like they would a regular double blip, a regular wall like this. If you try to double blip this, you're running the risk of de-weighting and like almost like half running your tire into it. Honestly, in this situation, that rock, I don't know. It looks a little bit loose. It might move on me, but I'll try. I would just run my less of a double blip and more of just like throttle. I'm kind of loading the flywheel, the drill that we just did, loading the flywheel before and just running it straight through. So we'll see. Like I said, it looks a little loose. So I set up, same way, step, kick that rear over, and I just ride up. Same thing, and back to steady slip, throttle, and clutch, just like you guys practiced on an incline. Again, if I pull my clutch in, I'm gonna roll right back down off that hill, but I don't even think about the cliff behind me because I trust in my ability to hold the bike. Low RPM as we move the bike around. Front tire over. Set up nice. Moved a little bit, but. So you guys can see there's multiple ways to approach stuff like that. But the understanding of first, balance as we enter. Did you guys notice there I took a run in, I was a little out of balance, I reset. I make sure I always give myself the nice, a nice straight run in. But the control it takes when I come into the obstacle is 100% a cone weave. I'm going slightly left, right, making sure that I'm coming in as centered and straight as possible as I go up the face. If you're out of balance before the obstacle, it's gonna be really hard to hit the obstacle, right? So balance is the first key. We're loading. Obviously there's 2 blips there. After I get up that obstacle, steady feed of throttle and clutch to hold the bike in one position. If I panic and pull the clutch in, I'm going right back down that cliff. And I know I've been preaching that, but that right there is the perfect scenario. And that's what I run into on a daily basis. I run into cliffs and you got to make it up and hold that bike and make your move from there. I mean, I'm in the tree. I can't really go any further forward, right? So it's a very small area to play on, but it's applicable in all the fundamentals that we did. All the fundamentals are applicable here. That makes sense? So, in this situation, just right off the bat, we have kind of a loose side hill here. My focus is heavy outside peg weight, especially as I do it, like I said, I'm gonna do it in one run, but in this, I'm gonna kind of break it down piece by piece. So even in this turn here, we're focusing on a heavy outside peg weight, making sure that I'm putting that maximum weight to the outside of the tire. That way I get maximum contact and I have the ability to kind of get a run up that first little step. Like I said, I'm gonna do this piece by piece. So I'm just gonna come up this first step, but I wanna get a good run into that. So I'm gonna focus on heavy outside peg weight. I'll be dabbing to the upside of the hill. Again, maybe leaning the bike out just a little to maximize traction and getting a good run in for the first step. Heavy outside peg weight, nice and smooth, clean, up the first step. I go right back to that steady slip of clutch that's just like rolling back and forth on an incline. That right there, I'm telling you, I use a lot. Now, I'm gonna set up for this one. We have a pretty decent sized step here. I'm looking for traction as I come into it. I don't have a big run-in. As I said earlier, lack of momentum exposes flaws in your technique. So learning how to get in front of that machine in this situation is very important. Same with the unstuck technique. I'm looking to get my weight forward so the bike can come out from under me. In this situation, starting like this, I'm just at too much of a disadvantage to get in front. So I'm looking for a little bit of extra run-in. I'm gonna try to lug the bike initially, then I'm gonna get onto the power. You'll hear a low lug and then a heavy RPM up the face. Back to that slip. So you can hear, I lug away because it's loose dirt. I don't want the rear tire to spin. So I lug away and I'm holding off on that big delivery of that big burst of power as long as I can into the face of that obstacle. Does that make sense? I'm not putting power down on it, but I'm holding off to put the power down as long as possible to gain as much momentum as possible. Same thing here, we have a loose step, and as you can see, the dirt has kind of accumulated on the step. So I'm gonna have to be really smooth on the power as I come up through this. I'm gonna float the front tire basically off this little step, run it hard into the face, and again, I'm going to try to hold off on that delivery of power until I'm all the way into the obstacle. Both times, I'm gonna have my left foot off. Personally, I like to have my right foot on the peg, left foot off in these type of situations. I'm gonna almost step up the obstacle, just like that unstuck technique I showed you, practicing doing it one-footed. I'm gonna take a step up that obstacle, try to get that bike out from under me. But both times, I'm gonna lug in, heavy power right before, step up the obstacle, get my body as far as forward as I can. Then I'm gonna reduce and release the clutch to keep the RPM low so I can hold traction on top of the obstacle, okay? Here we are, hips back, low RPM coming in. I build the RPM as late as possible to have the maximum amount of momentum. Step forward, get the body in front of the bike, then release the clutch to get the bike up the ledge. Uh-oh. Okay, I made a mistake. And did you see how I saved it? I went steady feet of throttle and clutch as I rolled backwards to make sure I didn't go rolling backwards off that cliff. So it's so key to get good at rolling back and forth on an incline, because when you mess up like that, it saves you. It saves you big time. Shows how slick this is too, truthfully. The slickness makes it kind of tough, you know, it's just a little bit loose dirt. Makes it kind of challenging to get a good run in. Same thing, low RPM. So, you guys can see there, low RPM into the face, heavy load right before I enter the obstacle, and then I transition back to that low RPM to hold traction over. Super, super challenging. Let me do it one more time, just piece by piece, low RPM, outside peg weight, keeping the low RPM, big load of power just before the cliff. I get my weight forward, and then low RPM, holding me there. Same thing here. I set up with as much momentum as possible, low RPM, keeping it in the bottom end of that power, a slow wheelie into the face, just like you guys were working on, wheeling on an incline like that. That's how I initiate this. Then I get a big load of power, weight forward, then release the clutch, hips back. Boom, step forward, low RPM again, holding me in position. You can see each time I go up the steps, I don't spin my tire. I go right back to that steady slip. Rear brake in, holding the bike in one position, slipping. Make sure I got a good run in here. I set up, hips back, same exact approach. Low RPM again. Last little step. Pivot. I always like to set my rear over. Just make sure I'm in a good position on the down. Downhills are all about balance, control, low or feathering the front and rear brakes. Try to hold momentum the whole way. Low RPM. front and rear brakes, clutch in, balance on the downhill, dragging, nice and slow, centered. That's what we're looking for. You can see there, truly the approach at speed is very similar to the approach when I pick it piece by piece. It's just happening a lot faster. Same delivery of power just before the obstacle, trying to find that balance, that control. It's very loose. It's pretty slick because of the dirt. That's a really good section. You guys can tell how important it is to learn steady feed, throttle, clutch, holding your bike in one position, learning how to modulate the front tire in the air. All of that stuff comes into play here. The unstuck technique, over and over and over, right? Loading the flywheel, the double blip, the clutch up. All of that is applicable here.